Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Congratulations, you have launched your podcast. Woohoo! I'm very proud of you and I'm very excited. And you probably have about 5 million questions. I cannot answer all of those questions here in this moment, in this format. However, I do have a few ideas for you of where to go next. I'm Andrea Klunder. I'm your podcast boss, and this is Podcast Envy. This episode is for newbies only. So you registered a domain, you set up your hosting account with Libsyn. You did, right? You set up your hosting account with libsyn.com. If not, don't panic, you still can. And of course, there are some other totally legit, reliable podcast hosting companies. I just tell all of my clients, and I prefer to go with Libsyn because they've been doing this for a long while. They also specifically are focused on podcast hosting, so they're not like SoundCloud, which is primarily focused on music and social and just sort of dabbles in podcast hosting, or like Squarespace, which is really good at drag and drop, easy to design websites, but just kind of dabbles in hosting podcasts. Libsyn, I think, is the best. Their customer service is amazing. Their presence in the industry is incredible. They are solid, they're reliable, and it's not that much money. So if you joined a free podcast hosting service and you're like, I don't know if I'm really going to keep doing this podcasting thing, so I'm just going to give it a try for free. I don't really have a lot of money. I don't have a strategy. Just don't. Pay the $5 to $15 a month for one of the basic plans with Libsyn and get started over there right away. And hey, yes, I'm going to confess to you, I am an affiliate of Libsyn.com. And that means if you do not already have an account with them and you sign up for one, I will get paid a teeny tiny infinitesimal small little amount of your first month or 3 months or something of hosting. It's like a couple bucks is what I'll get when you sign up for Libsyn. So full disclosure here. However, I have been recommending Libsyn ever since the beginning, before I ever even knew that I could maybe sort of be an affiliate, and it's not really something that they promote or advertise, and I probably shouldn't even be telling you that it exists, except that I legally need to and ethically need to disclose that to you. So if you haven't signed up for Libsyn, you can, of course, get my affiliate link as a little thank you. You can throw a couple peanuts my way in the show notes for this episode at podcastenvy.com. But besides that, let's say you've already figured all that hosting stuff out and you've got a couple episodes, and maybe you even submitted to Apple Podcasts and Google Play Music and Stitcher and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all the other places. Are there any other places? All the other places where one could potentially get a podcast. Great. So what's next? Upload episode, check the stats, twiddle your thumbs, post on social media, check the stats. It can be really disheartening if you keep watching those numbers and waiting. You're like, oh, we got another download. Woo! So here is what I'm going to tell you for your next steps. Keep listening to podcasts. Keep listening to podcast industry stuff. Here are a couple that I highly recommend. She Podcasts, great industry news and some witty banter from Jess and Elsie. Libsyn's The Feed. So remember Libsyn, that company I told you to use? They have their own podcast called The Feed, which gives you a ton of technical support, advice, industry stuff, all the things that you need to know to feel like a professional podcaster. And their episodes are long. So if you don't really have the time to sit around listening to podcasts about podcasting, another thing you can do is hire a podcast mentor or coach who does pay attention to that stuff, like it's their job, because it is. Or make sure that you have a good editor if you're not doing your own editing or don't want to do your own editing, who pays attention to that kind of stuff. That's part of our job as a producer, mentor, coach, editor, is to pay attention to these things and make sure that you know the things that you need to know. So listen yourself, pay someone else to listen for you and give you the digest. Those are your options. Also, get out there and go to events, meetups, conferences. This is something that I don't always automatically want to do myself, or I'm not always motivated to do. I do have a tendency to be a little bit of an introvert at times, which may surprise you, but that is probably something that's true of a lot of podcasters, sitting in a closet talking to ourselves or talking to someone via Skype only over audio, so we don't have to look at them face to face. Just kidding, sort of. But yeah, conferences, I used to think conferences and big podcasting events were only for people who were super professional and had made this their career and were, X number of years and had this many downloads. And the truth is, actually, a lot of conferences attract a lot of newbies just like yourself. And you can meet new people, get inspired, get a lot of ideas, get some how-tos. Did I say meet new people? It's so much easier to keep going on your podcast journey when you have other people in your circle and in your network who feel your pain and feel your pleasure and know what you're going through and have been there and will be there and all of those things. So you can start building your network by going to conferences. Does that make you feel nervous, meeting strangers at a conference? Well, if there's one coming up that you'd like to go to and you are curious as to whether I will be there, send me a message. Let me know where you're going and I will tell you if I will be there as well. I go to some, not all. The old podcasting budget doesn't quite allow for me to go to all, or I probably would. But get your ticket. See if there's a local podcasting meetup that you can join. See if there is an online Facebook group that you can join. Besides learning how to keep making your podcast better and better and better, I think it's so important to have this community connection, and Facebook groups can, not always, but can be a really great place for that to happen. If you are a female podcaster, the She Podcast group, sorry guys, is fantastic. The Podcasters Hangout is also a great group of mixed gender. Some podcasting groups, I'll be honest, it's like any Facebook group or any social circle. Some can be a little condescending or a little too people promoting themselves as editors or coaches or whatever, a little too salesy. So shop around, get a feel for the group, get a feel for the rules, the guidelines, the culture, the feeling of the group. See if it's a good fit for you. And if it makes you feel better when you're in that group, stick with it, participate, enjoy. If it makes you feel crappy when you go in that group, then get the heck out of there. But in any case, you need to find your podcasting tribe. And that is one way that will definitely keep you going and prevent the dreaded pod fade. All right, those are my quick tips for the newbie podcaster. You can get the notes for this episode at podcastenvy.com. And hey, drop your email there and you can get a little something, something sweet podcasting related from me. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Impostor Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.